Hi, welcome to the Metal and Wood Shop. We're located in room 1211 at the Student Innovation Center. Here, we have some important safety protocols that we need to follow. We have a line here, and you have to have the proper PPE or personal protective equipment to cross this line. What we require in this shop is closed-toed shoes and closed-heeled shoes, long pants, and safety glasses. If you have long hair, it's a good idea to tie it back. Long sleeves, you should pull them up. Also, remove any loose or dangling jewelry such as watches, necklaces, and rings. And if you have strings on your sweatshirt, tie them or tuck them in. We ask that you scan in on our card readers and tell us why you're here. On our website, you can find a list of restricted materials, so as you're planning a project out, you know what you can and can't use. All of our tools in the shop have a designated safety level, and those levels correspond to the level of supervision that they need and the risk those tools provide. We also have everything locked, so when you come in, you need to talk to a shop supervisor and get the tool unlocked so that you can start your project. We look forward to seeing you soon. This is the jointer, found in room 1211 of the Student Innovation Center, otherwise known as the Metal and Wood Makerspace. The jointer should be the first stop for anyone wanting to make a flat and square board for their woodworking project. The purpose of the jointer is to create two perpendicular surfaces on a board that will be used as reference surfaces for other tools in the workshop. This is the first step in the process of squaring a board. It is a safety level 2 machine. This means that in order to operate it, 2 trained users must be present. This can be 2 trained friends, a user and a makerspace assistant, or a user and a shop supervisor. When preparing your material, there are a few things to figure out before approaching the jointer. We do have material size restrictions. Your material cannot be shorter than 12 inches in length, or it cannot be thinner than 1/2 inch. Boards that are smaller or thinner are unusable on most of the equipment in our wood shop. The maximum width that our jointer can accommodate is 7.5 inches. If your board is larger, please consult a shop supervisor or makerspace assistant on how to create a reference surface. 2 terms that you will need to be familiar with are face and edge. The face is the larger surface, usually called width. This would be what people would see on a tabletop. The edge is what you would look at to measure the thickness of a board. The grain on both is going to look very similar. End grain is where you will clearly see the rings from the tree and is often called the ends of the board. This should never be ran through the jointer. Once you have your board grains identified, you will need to determine the flattest edge and face in order to joint them. This will help you speed up your process. You can do this by setting the board on a flat surface and looking at the board or gently rocking it back and forth to determine its flatness. You should mark these with a pencil so that you can remember which side to joint, and you can tell when you have taken off enough material. The depth of cut is preset at 1/16 of an inch. Do not adjust this. This machine does not have an emergency stop. The green button is the on button and starts the jointer. The red button is the off button and stops the jointer. You will almost always want to start by jointing the face of your board. You will start with the board on the infeed table away from the cutter. Never start the machine with the board in contact with the cutter. When jointing the face of the board, you will use 2 push blocks. These help us maintain a 4-inch margin of safety, which means our hands should never be within 4 inches of the blade of the machine. You'll put 1 push block at the rear of the board and 1 farther up the board to support it on its length. The rear push block has feet that drop down and should rest on the back end of the board. The front push block has an angled handle and should be angled into the fence. This combination should allow you to maintain control throughout the face jointing process. Once you have your board face down and gathered your push blocks, you can turn on the dust collection. There are 3 locations around the shop. This will help suck away any sawdust or wood shavings from your piece. You can now make sure your piece is not contacting the blade and start the jointer. You will want to stay in a good position as you move the board over the cutting surface. You'll want to move your feet with the board so that you do not end up off balance or reaching too far. You also should not be pushing down into the table more than what is needed to keep the board in place. Most of your force should be to move the board from right to left. It will take multiple passes to create your reference surface and flatten the face of the board. Be patient and take your time. Once you have jointed the face of your board, you can shut the machine off and start preparing to joint the edge. As long as your board is at least 5 inches wide, you will not need push sticks or blocks. If your board is under this measurement, please consult a supervisor or Makerspace assistant on how to use our larger push sticks on the jointer. You will want to place the jointed face along the fence. Your right hand will be towards the back of the board. Your left hand will be upside down towards the front of the board, helping support and push the board into the fence. This will feel awkward, but allows you to focus more and should prevent you from slipping into the blade. Once you feel comfortable with your hand location, you can turn on the machine and push your board through. Remember that most of your force should be moving horizontally and not down into the machine. You will need to make sure you're moving with the board. Multiple passes may be needed to flatten the edge of your board. Once done, shut the machine and dust collection off. You should now have 2 flat, perpendicular surfaces that can be used on the planer, table saw, miter saw, bandsaw, and drum sander to create great woodworking projects. You should check the flatness of these 2 surfaces before cleaning up and walking away from the machine. For cleanup, you'll want to grab a hand broom and dustpan off the wall and sweep up the sawdust and wood chips. They can then be dumped into the sawdust recycling bin. You do not want to use your hands for the risk of running your fingers over the blade of the jointer.